Hi guys, so my name is Emma Macri and I did my PowerPoint on criminal justice based off of my final paper. So the primary components to the criminal justice system are the police, the correctional institutions, and the criminal court systems. Now, a few of the things that the police are in charge of are basically enforcing the law, investigating crimes, and apprehending offenders, along with a few other things. Now, the correctional institutions, however, are in charge of carrying out sentences imposed by courts, providing safe and humane custody and supervision of the offenders that are in the jails. The criminal court systems are also in charge of conducting fair and impartial trials, ensure due process, and upholding the laws, along with several other things. Problems in the criminal justice system. So we have problems with police corruption, which ranging from small gratuities like free meals and coffees to violent crimes against offenders, like physical violence. AIDS in prisons are a big issue. They are commonly seen among the prison communities and pose danger to the rest of the inmates that are in the prisons as well. Geriatric offenders, the health of the elderly is a major issue in the prisons, and while there isn't a lot of things that they can do to be taken care of properly in the prisons as well, problems in the criminal justice system continued. The mentally ill and intellectually disabled are a big problem as well. Some of them are not diagnosed during the trial, and the prisons do not have the proper equipment or the people to handle these types of inmates, as they can become very violent and dangerous. And terrorism is another huge thing. Inmates are susceptible to fall into terrorist organizations within that prison, and many different issues can arise from that for the safety of the correctional officers as well. Okay, the Federal Uniform Crime Reporting Program, or the UCR. So this is used to help law enforcement, administration, operations, and management. Underneath the UCR, there's 4 collection branches. The National Incident-Based Reporting System includes information on victims, known offenders, the relationships between the victims and the offenders, the arrestees, property, and as well as property involved crimes. Now, the hate crime statistics, this contains information on crimes based on offenders' view of gender, religion, race, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and ethnicity as well. The third one is the law enforcement officers killed and assaulted. So this one contains information about officers who were felonious or accidentally killed or assaulted in the line of duty. And the last one, the Summary Reporting System, or SRS, has the same information as the National Incident-Based Reporting System, but it has more of a limited data to it. So, history of the criminal justice system. So, crime from the last half century has completely shaped how the criminal justice system works today. Between the years of 1850 and to 1880s, the crime was based off of the Civil War and immigration issues. Crime rates had began to fluctuate in the 1920s and the 1930s due to the Prohibition Act. And since then, new laws began to pass as years went on to adjust to the different crimes that took place in America. After the 9/11 attacks, the laws became more strict and more criminals were being tried and convicted in proper trials. The Peeland Principles. So Robert Peeland was the creator of these principles. There are 9 principles that each police officer and law enforcement agency follows. And the values behind these 9 principles are integrity, transparency, and accountability. Procedures an offender undergoes in the system. The first one would be the arrest, the basic arrest. And this is when the officer has probable cause to arrest an offender for a certain crime, no matter what the crime was. The first appearance. Now, this is when the judge presents the offender with the charges being brought up and the bail is then set. Then we have bail. The accused has the option to set bail, which is the release from the jail, which with the intention of returning to a later date for the trial based on the charges being held against them. Procedures continued. So the arraignment is when the accuser is identified and then has to plead either guilty or innocent based on the charges presented. Then comes the trial, and this is when the stages of the trial begin and the prosecutor and defender's side are both heard by a judge and a jury. And then after all of that, last is the sentencing. The judge gives the sentence based on the verdict and the charges of the offender has. From probation all the way up to life in prison, the judge has the ultimate decision. Courtroom procedures in a criminal trial. So the first procedure or stage would be the trial initiation. This is when the trial date is picked, and also from 1974, the Speedy Trial Act was put in place, which required a trial to start within 70 working days from initial arrest. Then comes the jury selection. So this is basically when the jury is chosen for a trial. Then next we have the opening statements, and the prosecutor and the defense give their opening remarks to the judge and the jury. And that picture is opening remarks. Then we have presentation of evidence. So the evidence presented so this is when the evidence is then presented to the judge and the jury. And there are three different types of evidence. We have the direct evidence, which is the fact, the circumstantial, which needs to be explained, and the real evidence, which is the physical portion. Now, the closing arguments, both the defendant and the prosecutor give their final remarks to the judge and the jury. And that picture is the presentation of evidence. And then we have the judge's charge to the jury. This is where the foreman is picked, and he or she to mediate the discussion about the trial. The jury deliberations, this is when the trial is discussed by the jury, and this is where they come up with the verdict that is going to be presented to the judge. And then finally, we have the verdict. So this is the final part of the trial. The final decision, this is also the final decision that the jury has come to, and it either is a guilty or non-guilty ruling. And then there are my references.